to the 2021 Applied Reproductive Strategies in Beef Cattle Conference. I echo everyone else's statement that it's unfortunate we couldn't be together this year, but this format does offer opportunities for those that wouldn't be able to travel, perhaps by distance or cost or because of work, to participate. So that is a good thing. I'm glad to be here. We're going to talk about use of AI to enhance value. First place we need to start is when we consider natural service as compared to artificial insemination. AI offers herd health benefits, and it does in the way that we can avoid venereal disease, which results in abortion and infertility, associated, of course, with natural service. And the primary two that producers are most concerned with, the industry's most concerned with, are Campylobacter fetus, or Vibrio, more commonly known, and Trichomonas fetus, or trick. Okay. So what happens, just for a second, let's talk about natural service and what some of the potential is when we have natural service. We start out with the bull up here in the upper left, and this bull is trick positive. So this bull breeds a negative cow, shown right below it, with the calf in the uterus. The cow becomes pregnant and is also infected with trick. The cow will ultimately lose the pregnancy as we move on this row here to the right. Cow will ultimately lose the pregnancy and she will return to heat. She will then potentially be bred by a different bull or the same bull. If she's bred by a variety of different bulls, she will not settle until she has cleared the infection, but she has helped to infect other bulls who may not have been infected. So therefore, we can see on the bottom line here, in this dark color black, we have 4 bulls that are now infected. Now these bulls can then go on to breed other cows and infect other cows within the herd. So just starting with one infected bull, this is kind of the cliche of the gift that keeps on giving. So one of the first things we want to consider when we're considering artificial insemination is we can increase value through increased herd health and reduction of venereal disease or elimination of venereal disease. Okay, so let's move on a little bit and consider natural service versus heat detection and AI versus fixed time AI. A lot of stuff going on. We can get our heads spinning very easily. Thankfully, there are resources available, such as the beef cow protocols that are shown on this slide, put together by the Beef Reproduction Task Force, and available online and available in the back of AI stud catalogs. And essentially what you have here are research-proven protocols, a variety of management strategies, some that include heat detection and AI, some that include fixed time AI, and specific protocols not only for beef cows and beef heifers, but also for Bos indicus influenced animals. Okay, so there are resources available. I'm not going to talk any more about that because later on we have speakers who will address this specifically. What I will move on to, though, is let's look at some data from some herds that have practiced natural service, estrus detection, and AI, and then moved into a fixed time AI situation. Okay, we have a graph shown here. And let me see if I can get my pointer. Okay, very good. On this axis here, we have percentage of calves calves born. On this axis, we have day of calving season. And this is 11 years worth of data. So there's a bunch of data included in this graph here from the University of Missouri Thompson Farm. And we can see on this dotted line or broken line, this is the line that depicts percentage of calves born across time for natural service. If we move up a little bit in the graph, where we have these boxes or diamonds, we can see this is for estrus detection in AI, and there's about 5 years worth of data there, over 1,000 animals in that data set. And then if we move to this last line here, this is the fixed time AI line, that's 3 years worth of data. So essentially, the take home from this is that we can see a change in the percentage of calves born relative to time or day of the calving season. So calves are actually being born earlier in the calving season, and calves born earlier in the calving season have an advantage over those being born later. And we'll continue to talk about that. Let's look at one specific case where this, again, University of Missouri data, where we're looking at a calving profile from a herd that was traditionally managed with natural service and then switched to fixed time AI. This is the calving profile. Once again, we have on this axis right here, percentage of calves born, excuse me. On this axis, we have day of calving season, and we have natural service in the continuous line shown here. These are the percentage of calves born across time. And then in this broken line is fixed time AI. And this is a really good visual in that it shows quite a difference in the percentage of calves born relative to day of calving season. And you could pick a number here anywhere. You could pick 60% of calves born, and you can come back down and you can find how many days in the calving season that is, and then compare that with the previous year's management of natural service. And the gain in days has value. And we're going to get to that in just a second. But let's have one last slide on calving distribution. One of the most important things that we can do is have the majority of calves born in the first 3 weeks of the calving season. Okay, that not only helps out the animals that are calving prepare for the next breeding season, that helps those calves have a longer period of time until weaning, longer potential amount of time to gain weight. Okay, so we have another data set here from University of Missouri. This is from Schaefer in 2005 from 3 different locations where they were doing estrus synchronization research. And we can see percentage of calves born here on this axis. We can see day of the calving season. And then we can see in the box in the inset, cumulative calf percentage by day 15, 21, 30, and 42. And essentially, by day 21, 70% of calves had been born. And by day 42, 91% had been born. So quite a shift. Visually, you can see where those calves are being born, when they're being born. And then you can also visualize the opportunity that a calf being born up here in the calving season has, as opposed to a calf that's being born over here in the calving season. And that's really where we're going, is trying to increase the value of the feeder calves. And the data that we've seen so far, the use of artificial insemination and specifically timed AI changes the calving distribution. Okay, we've seen that. The Thompson Farm, the Linneus Farm, we've seen that from Heifers data. And what happens? Well, calves then are older on average at weaning because they're calve earlier in the calving season, and therefore have a greater opportunity in time to gain weight, and they do show a heavier average weaning weight. So the question that many people would ask is, well, how much heavier? What are we talking here? Because you're going to have to do some estimates of costs and benefits and things like this anytime you change a management strategy. Well, you can start off with, to begin with, a good estimate is 2 pounds per day. But that's not where you should start. I would recommend that you've got to add in there that AI sired calves have a weaning weight advantage over natural sired calves due to the improved genetics also. It's not only days, it's also due to the improved genetics that they carry. Now, how much is that? It's going to depend on what you're looking at and which sires you're using, etc. But it is an additive above the 2 pounds per day. So let's look at some considerations when we're looking at natural service versus fixed time AI. Because anytime we change a management strategy, we should be going through and looking at the pros and the cons, the increased costs or the decreased revenue. Certainly, when we implement fixed timed AI, there are increased costs. There's no question about it. There's pharmaceuticals or the drugs, prostaglandin, GnRH, cedars, whatever it is we're using. We have to buy SEMEN, okay? There will be some increased labor depending upon how many passes through the chute, and there could be AI technician fees, okay? On the other side of that, there could be reduced revenue if we make this shift away from natural service, in that we have fewer cull bulls to sell. And sometimes selling those cull bulls it's kind of a nice check to get, okay? But let's go ahead and let the pendulum swing the other way. We're going to increase revenue with fixed time AI if we can move the calving distribution, as we've shown, and then market heavier, not only heavier, but also more uniform calves, which have value. And then another advantage for fixed timed AI is this idea of reduced costs because we have fewer bulls to be maintained. Bulls aren't free. Bulls are eating. Bulls are costing us money. So these are the types of things we have to consider, we have to juggle, and there's help out there in how to do this, and we're going to talk about that closer to the end of the presentation. Okay. So there are also numerous opportunities. Numerous sires are available that have data. And this data could be used in a terminal sire situation to allow for generation of easy calving, fast growing, uniform calves for beef production. So this idea of actually selecting sires that have traits of value for the end point of production, not only for gaining, not only for calving, but for carcass traits. There's numerous AI sires available. that have a lot of data that you can rely on. And that has potential value. Oops. I think I'm frozen here.
We can see you.
There we go. Okay, my slide was frozen for a second. Okay, so what do we want to do relative to this idea of using terminal sires? Well, we could couple AI with retained ownership to realize enhanced value of carcass traits. Okay, and then we're going to go through very quickly just kind of a case study of a herd in Virginia. It's primarily a cow-calf herd, greater than 700 cows, and they've been keeping track of their herd and of the AI usage in their herd and of harvest traits of their animals. So if we look at this, relative returns to the cow, that's what this graph is. On this percentage, on this axis, excuse me, we have percentage. On this axis, we have parentage of the marketed calf. So over here on the far right, this would be the returns to the cow when a calf has a natural service dam and a natural service sire. This is natural service sire, AI dam, AI sire, natural service dam, and AI sire and AI dam. The take home from this is that the relative returns to the cow increase by 22% when we go from a natural service sire, natural service dam produced calf to an AI sire, AI dam produced calf. Okay, so that's one way of looking at it, the relative returns to the cow. Another way of looking at it is the percentage of choice carcasses. Again, this graph is set up in the same way. We have percent choice carcasses shown on this axis. We have the parentage of the marketed calf shown within these bars on this axis. Set up the same way with the extremes, natural service sire and natural service dam on the right. All the way over to the left, we have the AI sire and the AI dam produced calf. As you can see, of course, we have the same trend line relative to returns to cow. And what do we have? We have increased carcasses grading choice by 38%. 38%. And this comes from the ability to select not only good sires, but the ability to mate those good sires, knowing the genetics of your own animals. Okay, but even if we're going against an AI sire and a natural service dam, here, look at the increase we have. We're about 85% choice here, and here we're about 61% choice in a natural sire, natural service sire, natural service dam. Okay, so there's real power in there in using that data and being able to manage those matings so that you can generate a calf so that that calf then can have those traits of interest so that when that calf goes all the way to harvest and you retain ownership, that you can reap some of the benefits of generating that calf, of using artificial insemination. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and shift gears just a little bit. AI also offers the ability to choose sires and also sex semen with maternal traits important for producing replacements. Generating heifers so that we can use these animals, quality animals, to continue our business. If we look at this graph here, when a heifer, let me see, hang on a second here. Okay. Here we go. Heifers that calve earlier stay in the herd longer. And what this graph is showing is we have heifers remaining in the herd. Here on this axis, we have calving season on this axis. We have heifers that calve here. This is 1 to 22 days here, or 23 days and later in the calving season. If they calve earlier in the calving season, they not only stay in the herd longer, they also produce more pounds of calf during their lifetime than heifers calving later. And that just makes sense. That just makes sense. An animal that can calve early, one season, all other things being equal, has the potential to calve early the next season, has the potential to calve early the next season, and so on, and have calves that have the opportunity then to have higher average weaning weights across her lifetime. That's where we're getting along with this. We can see that in the graph here. We can look at heifers remaining in the herd, 60% of the heifers remaining in the herd, up to the third calving season. If we're looking at the third calving season, for those late calvers, it's about 40% of heifers remaining in the herd for the late calvers. So we can go ahead and look at that. You can play with that. Earlier is better for longevity, but it's not only for longevity of that particular animal, it's for total pounds of calf produced during their lifetime. I'm sorry here, but looks like I'm frozen. My PowerPoint is frozen. Huh. I don't know what happened. My PowerPoint is okay. So let me stop sharing for a moment, and then let me go ahead and restart. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing, and then I'm going to go ahead and restart. And we hope we avoid that that issue. Okay. There we go. Okay, here we are. So we're not quite done yet. I apologize for the freezing of my computer. I can't tell you, it's never really done that. So, but wait, there's more. And I'm sorry for everyone waiting. Here's what we're going to talk about. We've already talked about what's going on, or the potential that goes on a cow-calf operation, and trying to increase the value of those feeder calves. Okay. But what's going on with domestic beef semen sales? We should understand this. And we're looking at data here from NAB, or National Association of Animal Breeders, which tracks not only domestic semen sales, but also international semen sales. And you can see we have breed shown in this column. We have 2020 data, 2019 data, and then percentage plus or minus. You can see Angus semen went up almost 17% in domestic beef semen sales. Overall, we see an increase in 23.5% of domestic beef semen sales. Does this mean that beef producers alone are responsible for an increase in domestic beef semen sales? Actually, no, that's not necessarily the case. What has had a huge influence in these last few years is this idea of AI-sired beef on dairy calves, which have increased value as compared to purebred dairy bull calves. So what we're seeing in the dairy industry and also in the AI marketing industry is we're seeing that beef sires are being specifically marketed to dairy producers to generate F1 calves that have desirable characteristics. No one's interested in the random calf. People are interested in getting value and the most value possible, depending upon where your market is, whether they're Holstein crosses or they're Jersey crosses. There's money to be made here, and dairy producers are trying to garner that. And it can be upwards of $100 per calf for these F1 crosses. So, having said that, does that mean there's been a decline in domestic dairy semen sales? Actually, yes, that's exactly what that means. And you can see here we have breed, here we have 2020 data, 2019 data, plus or minus percentage shown here year over year. Look at the Holstein data. Holsteins make up 87%, roughly to 89% of dairy cows in the US. And the amount of semen purchased has gone down by 6 percentage points. Okay. Overall, it's gone down. And then for all breeds, it's gone down. Some of that's being swapped out to beef semen. So that's not the end of the story, though, because there's demand for beef semen, US-based, internationally. So what are we seeing there? Again, the chart is set up the same: breed, 2020, 2019, and plus or minus the change here. Look at Angus. Angus semen, 32% increase from 4.6 million doses to over 6 million doses. Look at, where was it? Brahman. Brahman went up 54%. Overall, an increase in beef semen export sales from 2019 to 20 of almost 34%. What does this mean? It means that AI-sired F1 beef calves are in demand. And they're in demand everywhere. Here we're looking at a picture of a feedlot or of a ranch here in Brazil. And we're looking at the dams here in Nelore, which had been bred to produce these F1 Angus crosses. So we're going to kind of turn the corner here, and we're going to wrap everything up, summarize everything. How do I estimate the costs of adopting AI? Okay, I mentioned that anytime you change a management strategy or you consider changing a management strategy, we should go through the gyrations of the pros and the cons, the increased potential value, the decreased potential costs, etc. The Beef Reproduction Task Force website is shown here. We have not only the estrus synchronization planner available, but also another product called the AI calculator. Both of these are freely available. The estrus synchronization planner will show you a wide variety of protocols, calendars, pharmaceuticals necessary, perhaps number of alternatives to the synchronization program that you are considering. AI calculator will offer many similar options to provide you with a good estimate of how much is this actually going to cost me, what types of pharmaceuticals do I need to have on hand, how much time on the calendar do I need to invest, etc. So that's one resource. Having considered that, and that's putting the pencil to the paper, that's working on the calculator, you also have to consider the nutrition and the health of the herd. What I like to say is, what's the starting point? Okay. Is there an issue with nutrition? Is there an issue with body condition scores? Inherent fertility level of the herd or health of the herd? What's the starting point? We always want to make management strategy changes at a time when we'll be able to reap the maximal return on investment. Because changing from one management strategy to another when something is suboptimal, we will not be able then to actually see or get that potential return on investment because something was suboptimal. And certainly nutrition and health, inherent fertility level of the herd can cause issues. Okay, so I'd like you to consider that also. Okay, relative to a summary, how might AI increase the value of your herd and business? We talked about herd health, avoidance of venereal diseases. Okay, we talked about change in calving distribution, this idea of having animals calve sooner to provide more opportunity in days for calves to gain weight, to be ultimately a heavier average weaning weight. Availability of terminal sires to access benefits of carcass merit when retaining ownership. We went through a little case study of that. Also, recognizing the availability of sires and sex semen with maternal traits important to generating valuable replacements because we want our herd to progress genetically. We want it to get better on a year-to-year basis. And then that last bullet point there, beef AI semen usage is increasing, and it's increasing among dairy and international beef producers. And the reason it's increasing is because we have increased demand for protein, increased demand for beef products. We should consider our businesses and the competition. How does this factor into our business? Is this the future for us, artificial insemination? There's a lot of value you can see across these bullet points that potentially could be gained by your business. I'm going to go ahead and end there. Thank you very much.